Welcome, everyone. This is the Awakening, the Master Key to All Problems class. This is our third class. And last class, we had the three different practices. One of them was the awareness practice, one of them was the journaling, and one of them was to read the lesson. And so I'm just kind of curious what your guys' experience was with those three. The awareness practice being the way it is right now, that we've been doing it for the past couple weeks, is orienting ourselves to know our the exercise is our relative position to ourself. So that would mean we'd also have to discern things that may seem like us or that's relative to us, that and then ourself. And so the things that are relative to us, the points of reference, could be our thoughts, could be our emotions, could be our body, and then ourself would, of course, isn't any of those things at the deepest level. In this course, we're going to continue to discover deeper and deeper that we are what sees those things, or we are the awareness of those things. And so this is a very subtle recognition, but it's a game changer as far as quality of life and clarity. So that's going to be. I'm curious if anyone had any more experiences with this. You can just do it throughout your day while you're moving around, or you can make time for it as just a you and just by yourself kind of a deepening experience. Maybe make it as enjoyable as possible. I always bring coffee or tea or something like that to my experiences to make it more cozy and lovely. So you can be creative in those ways. So that's one of them, the awareness exercise. And then there was the journal prompt last week, which if any of you guys got a chance to do it, I would love for you to read it if you're interested. The journal prompt was journal about a right, wrong, self-talk story that has been stuck in your head and how that has felt. Then journal about how you see it differently in light of this new information and the difference in how that feels. So that brings us to the third assignment, which was the lesson. And so what this journaling prompt is talking about is in the lesson, we were unraveling anyone or anything being cause of anything. And so it's really easy to get stuck on when there's a bad, painful, wrong, or confusing, whatever kind of situation that happens, to get stuck on how that person was the cause of it, or even how ourself was the cause of it. And we just get stuck there. And really what that is just the most surface level interpretation of the event that happened. And so we know what that experience is. We do that all the time. And so this week, this journal prompt was just a chance for you to integrate that new idea of no one being cause of anything in with our own life experience. And that's what all these journal prompts are for, just as a way to integrate this new idea as more than just a theory, as more than just a concept, but into our own actual practical life experience. So that's what the journal prompt was referring to. Yay, Corbin's here. Is the essentially the difference in how that feels. That's really what we're going for, is just the recognition of the difference in how that feels when you think someone is the specific cause of something versus how when you see that actually when you expand out past just those very limited parameters of what you're calling the situation where this person's the cause and this is the effect of the cause, when we expand out to see that actually, there's so many more factors that say influence that one person who did that thing, like every experience in his life or her life that they ever had, all the way back to childhood, everyone who's influenced them, every trauma they've had, every love and joyful moment. And so really, to say that anything is cause is just simply not including any other factors besides the window that you're looking through, which is fine in life, particularly in order to describe things to people. or for communication. But whenever we stick to our guns with that kind of thought, that saying this situation is bad because of this and the story of why, then, well, that's pretty painful to move around life like that. So every moment when something difficult arises, we can expand out to see, oh, there's actually so much that influenced this person to do the thing they did or make the choice they did or say the thing they did. And so for me to hold that grudge in my body or to hold that thought form in my body really is only detracting from my quality of life. So this journal prompt was just a way to experiment with that for ourselves. And so I'm wondering if you guys had a chance to either write the journal prompt or have more experiences with the awareness exercise, or had any other thoughts about the lesson or anything like that this week. And hi, Corbin, you made it. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Corbin, did you happen to have any thoughts about the lesson this week or the journal prompt, or have any other experiences with the awareness exercise? I'm calling you out because you usually have something good. Hi.
Call me out.
Calling you out.
I tried it.
Did you? Cool.
Did a bit of it. It's interesting, that exercise of kind of withdrawing. I like that. I have trouble doing that sometimes, like you just get so caught in your emotions and thoughts sometimes. It's like I have trouble withdrawing from that. And it's like I'll start to do it a little bit, and then I'll just get a little frustrated, maybe, of like, man, I'm having trouble pulling back from that. But it's cool. I like the idea of not seeing myself as my thoughts. That seems to be beneficial for sure. Yeah, the right wrong journaling thing was interesting too. I'm having trouble getting my mind around some of that too.
Right, totally.
Where it's like, you want to say that. I get the concept of it. Like, I understand that everybody does things, and we're all doing things from our cumulative experiences, and the only reason we are, like, everybody's doing things based on every experience they've had up and to this point in their life has led to them doing what they're doing, But, like, I was still not getting the idea, like, last week of, like, moving forward, though. Like, applying that moving forward. Like, I want to say, like, not taking others into consideration when I make decisions of things that may hurt or harm them is wrong. I want to say that, being inconsiderate, I want to say that's, like, wrong, moving throughout my day. I don't want to do things that hurt or negatively affect others or cause them emotional pain.
Right.
It just seems not nice to do.
Right.
And so saying that there's no right and wrong there in the decisions that I make is challenging for me to get a little bit.
Okay, so you painted a really good picture, Lara. Let's stay with that picture for 1 minute, because what you're describing here is it's like your recognition that you personally wouldn't want to move through life and hurt someone, and so it's good to, like, evaluate so that way you don't do something that would be hurtful, because essentially that's wrong. Well, here's the thing is, and this really is the only way that this will make sense, is if we can either we need to completely put ourselves into the place that we're perceiving from. So if we are perceiving from ourself in a specific present moment situation, then you will do all those things then to your ability, and to your ability and your understanding, you will make a choice that will not hurt anyone that from your perception of what you can see. Okay, and so this is to your ability though, and this is the key thing is in order to see how this might work for someone else, we have to completely remove any of our past experiences from our understanding. We have to completely remove any ways that we know that we would move through the world or make a choice, and completely put ourselves in their body in a present moment situation. Now, they have had different experiences, and so those different experiences are going to cause them to make different choices that for them, giving all the information that they had, they are making always the best choice, giving all the information that they have. And so from our outside perspective over here, it could look like they're making a wrong or a bad choice because maybe it's hurtful for me or hurtful for someone else. But in reality, that it wouldn't be possible for them to know because they didn't have the information about what would be hurtful or what not in that moment that they made that situation. Or maybe there are other factors that caused them to make that choice in that situation that we didn't know that they were even working with. And so once again, we're judging someone else for a situation or for a choice that they made being wrong or bad. And so once again, the only way that this could possibly work is if we can completely either put ourselves in our own shoes or completely put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And in that way, there is no wrong or no bad choice. It's just everyone is working exactly from all the information that they have and everything that they've ever experienced in their life. Only from your shoes does it seem like someone else is making a wrong or a bad choice, and vice versa. Now, granted, here's the moving forward part. Now, granted, it seems like that when we even moving forward, we can only make choices based upon the information that we have. And so, once again, it may seem from an outside perspective that a choice that we are making is wrong or bad. But that's the only choice we could make. And so therefore, it not only is no choice essentially we make wrong or bad, but really the only choice we could make in the moment. Not only that, but there's not as much control, and this is really the key point to me, there's not as much control that we have in our life, there's less control in our life, we have less control than we actually think that we do. It's an exaggerated idea of control. Because it's like after we make we even do this to ourselves, it's like after we make the choice and do the action, then later, from a different point of reference, from a higher point of view, when now you have more information, we judge ourselves for making that choice in that past moment. And so we're constantly just making the best choice we can given all the information we have in that moment. And again, that's the difficulty, is people aren't orienting themselves in the correct position whenever they think about something. They orient themselves as to where they are now, which is a place of much more information than where they were yesterday or a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. and judge themselves for the choices they made back then, which is the same action of not correctly orienting yourself whenever you think about what the choices or actions of another person did. Because you have to, instead of orienting yourself here and then looking over there, you have to completely put yourself here in order to recognize that this wasn't wrong or bad, but the choice they made was only due to all the information they had. And so, once again, here's ourself. And ourself with the past. We look back and say we made a wrong choice and really condemn or chastise ourselves for a long time over stuff like that. But it's coming from this higher, more information perspective. We're back there. So in order to actually discern back there, you actually would have to put yourself completely back there and realize what information you actually had to work with back there. And so therefore there is no, when you actually do that, you realize there actually is no wrong or bad choice. That each choice from each person in the world is only based from all the information that they have from that position. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so moving forward is that same way. It's like every second we're making that choice based on exactly all the information that we have. And so in that way, there is much less control that we actually have. It's actually, we're constantly just moving forward with all the information we have in that moment, making the best choice in each moment. But then that exaggerated control idea comes in where we made choices, say, from 5 hours ago to now, and then when we get to now, because of our exaggerated idea of control, we expected now to have produced more than it could have. But that's only due to the not orienting ourselves in the right position back then 5 hours ago, whenever we tried to discern what 5 hours later would have produced. Each moment can only produce so much, but our exaggerated idea of what things should be or could be is what gets us into trouble. And so in that way, we can even kind of relax a little bit when it comes to moving forward in our lives, when we get more realistic with what each moment can actually produce. And that's really, I think, the main focus is creating a better quality of experience by connecting with reality as it is instead of our exaggerated ideas of what things should be or should have been or could be. And so you can kind of expand out, and it kind of looks like moving forward with this idea of moving forward that that there's not a lot of wiggle room to be like an individual. There's not a lot of there's a weird idea that goes with it, like like things are only going to play out in one specific way. And I think there's some degree of truth to that. And the reason why I say that is because due to exactly who we are and everything that we've experienced in the past, we have a certain trajectory. And part of the trajectory, I mean, it's not for certain what the trajectory will be. It certainly can take different turns at times for sure, but then when we actually get to that turn though, it's like, actually this turn makes a lot of sense. I couldn't have perceived that I would go this clearly dramatic other direction a long time ago, but that actually makes sense due to everything that I had experienced before. It was an amalgamation of like all that tenseness or all that pain or all that struggle or trouble or whatever it was, built up to this moment where I made this dramatic turn. And so that dramatic turn was part of the trajectory the whole time too. But from this point now, it wouldn't be possible to perceive that in the future. But you start to see that there isn't like this huge future idea that we need to hold above our heads and struggle towards. That's more of that exaggerated idea of control. But it really is more like in each moment, things are going to present themselves and unfold in a way that I'm going to use the information I have in order to make the best choice possible. And that's going to lead me to the next step. And that same action is going to lead me to the next step. And that same action is going to lead me to the next step. And in the future, at one of those next steps, there might be a situation that really changes the trajectory of my life. In which case, that too was part of the unfoldment as well. I don't know if you call that fate. I don't know if you call that no free will, but to me, it allows me to see that me making the choices that I'm making in each present moment is really the only thing that matters. And not all these exaggerated ideas of what I'm calling control, or that exaggerated ideas of the way things should be that we're holding over our heads in each moment. So maybe there's not, maybe Corbin, there's not even really a like integrating it with how it works or moves in the future. Maybe it really is just maybe all this really is just a way to for us to release some of the extra stuff that we're doing in our head, and be able to come to the present moment to enjoy our life a little bit more. Whenever we realize that everything in the past is part of what not only influences me but other people, so I can't really hold that against other people or even myself, and that I can't really interpret what's going to happen in the future. But what I do know is that the present moment seems to be the only thing that really is important, or really that I can affect, that I can influence. And so then we can release a lot of the extra baggage we're holding over our heads, or release a lot of the baggage that we're holding against ourselves from the past. And then we can even be more present in this awareness exercise. Like some of you guys are saying, I saw some other people shaking their heads, yes, while you were talking, Corbin. It's like, yeah, that they were getting what you were saying by, like, it's hard to even do that when there are thoughts and emotions that pull you out of that. And so that's why I'm introducing these two things as a coupling, these lessons and the exercise, because as we move through and we see what these lessons are pointing to a little bit more, then it dramatically increases our capacity to sit and be aware without our emotions and thoughts pulling us out of it. And they go together, they happen together. Like, you couldn't just, it would be very challenging just to sit every single day and do like an awareness exercise like that, and not also have something that couples with it that will begin to create more clarity in our thinking as to what's actually not exaggerated and what is exaggerated, so we can actually be present with the exercise. So it's all a process that will unfold more and more, I think, as we do this. I don't think we necessarily even have to get it right now or anything like that. And that's really the point of the journaling prompts too, is to make this concept that we present, because essentially these lessons are concept, to move that concept into the reality of our own lives. That's what the journaling prompt is an opportunity to do, an integration of the concept with our own life experience. And it's not to say that all this will come to you immediately, but I think throughout the course of these next few weeks of the course that it'll all start to become more clear. And it may not even be my version of what's clear. It will be your guys' own version of what's clear. That's the important thing about this. Did anybody else have any thoughts or comments or questions or anything about those?
Yeah, most of my journaling was about my frustration stems from expectations, and just accepting what I get and appreciating it for what it is instead of, because my expectations are hard to meet.
I know what that's like.
Right.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Kara. Did you have any other thoughts about that? You painted a really clear image of what you said there. I thought that was really great.
I don't know, I journaled like 4 pages about it.
Oh, cool.
But I mean, I went in and answered every individual question that was in your lesson.
Cool.
But yeah, nothing's really right or wrong, black and white, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a thing. The when did I adopt this was difficult. Like, when did... I don't know. I think my expectations for myself have always been high. Like, I don't remember a time when they weren't. And I don't remember a time where I wasn't like... I particularly hate holidays because I never like my presents and they are disappointing. Or even if I get presents, usually I don't even get anything. So like that, holidays suck. And this year, we don't even get to have one.
Right. Yeah, good stuff, Kara. That was really clear, and it wasn't. That is such a normal story that we do, which you use the words of expectation, but actually, I'll have to sit with that for a minute to totally clarify it, but that even may be another word you could use for exaggerated belief and control that I talk about. It's like I'm calling it control because we have this expectation of the way things should be or should have been, and it is exaggerated because it isn't what is, because it couldn't have been that due to exactly all the parts, all the people that were present that created what the thing was. And so so there's that, and then we over top of that have this expectation, and it really is sometimes can be a forceful kind of, I'm wanting this to be this thing, so it's kind of like control. And I'm calling it exaggerated control, and expectation is like an exaggerated sense of control. And this moment couldn't have been anything different due to all the parts, meaning all the people that were present in that moment, due to now break up all those parts, say there's like 5 different parts, people, due to what this one, all the pains and sorrows and traumas that they've experienced in our life that cause them to behave in a particular energetic pattern, and all the pains and traumas and loves and joys that this one's experienced in their life that causes this person to behave like this particular energetic pattern, and then same way with this one and same way with this one. So now you bring all these separate patterns together and yourself, which also has that same past experiences, and it produces a particular result. And so here's all of this right here. And then on top of that is our thinking, which is this should have been different, which is the expectation. But it's not possible for this to have been different because due to all the factors of reality that were actually present during that situation. And so it's an exaggerated, this right here is an exaggerated idea of control. You're wanting to control this and for it to be different. And so, but yeah, expectation is also a perfectly good word for it. And so how do we span this gap? How do we fix this discrepancy here between the expectation and the reality of things? And that's what this lesson is so trying to describe, which is, okay, here's the situation. Let's take each one apart, one by one. Let's see. Let's get out of our own shoes and put ourselves completely in the shoes of this person. What happened to them earlier today? What happened to them last week? What happened to them last month? What happened to them a year ago, 10 years ago, in childhood, whatever the case may be, that causes them to be this particular energetic pattern that they are. And we can't really know that, not really, but we can kind of perceive it a little bit, particularly when we do this one thing, when we do that for ourselves. When we see what caused ourself, and this is so important, when we see what caused ourself to behave in the way we behaved in that particular experience, when we see what influenced us to behave in that particular experience, we take it apart. What happened earlier today? What happened yesterday, a week from today? What kind of trauma did we go through a month ago, that we're still healing from, or even that completely changed the way we see things? What happened a year ago, 10 years ago in childhood that caused this, meaning you, this particular energetic expression, to behave in that way? And when you start to see that each moment of your behavior in the present moment couldn't be any different due to everything that you've experienced, this is just what you are and the way you think and the way you feel, when you really get with that, then you also see that that's true for everyone else. All these other parts in the experience. And so the present moment experience where all these parts came together couldn't have been any other way. And that's how we span that discrepancy between the mind that has the expectations that things should be a different way and the reality of things.
Brian, I really wanted to say
Yeah.
That what she said, what Kara said really resonated with me, because I'm absolutely the same way. I've always held myself to these high expectations, and I think back, I beat myself up over situations, and then when she said, when did I, get this way, that really hit, because when did I start beating myself up for it? Because I don't remember always doing that.
Mm.
And that just really made me think when she said that.
Right. And we all do that too. It's such a normal human thing to do, all that stuff that everyone here has described so far. We all do it in one way or another. And that's why there's classes about how to unravel that stuff, because we all do it. And it's so important to create a different, at some point anyways, it's important to us to create a different experience. So yeah, so it's like you asked, it's like I couldn't really, you both said I couldn't really discern at what point in my life it was created. And I don't even know if it's so absolutely important for you to identify the specific moment in time. Heck, it probably took 50 or 100 or 200 specific little incidences to create that change in momentum to where you started doing that to yourself, you know? And so I don't even know if you can discern one moment. The point is, and you actually already discerned the point here, which is you wasn't doing it at one point in your life, and then you started doing it at another point in your life. So somewhere in between there is when it occurred. Somewhere in between there was what had happened. And so either way, it doesn't really matter the specific point, but that just the recognition that through your life, through the experience of your own life, produced what you are now in this moment. Yeah. And when you can just kind of see that, when you can even kind of get a glimpse for that, and that's so important to do, but when you kind of get a glimpse of that, then all of a sudden you look around all these people in your life and you realize that that's also true for them too.
I think the vice versa works as well. Like, what I think people expect of me, I'm always trying to hit that, and sometimes it's hard or impossible or makes me unhappy.
Can you say that again, Kara? Did you say that the vice versa thing is hard?
The vice versa, the mirror.
Yeah.
I try to live up to what I think other people's expectations of me are.
Right.
So, like, if work calls at 3 a.m., even if I want to sleep, I'm probably gonna answer that and be pissed off about it, and probably work a full day the next day.
Do you have other people besides work? Do you have other people's expectations of you that you're trying to live up to?
Yeah. Or I want people to like me. I want people to be happy.
Right.
I don't like to tell people no if they ask for something, and then every time you answer any question, you need to like think through: is this gonna piss me off later? I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm not really coming up with one.
Mm-hmm. You know what's coming to my mind in this awesome example that you gave here, Kara? I mean, this awesome, idea that you shared with us is that and this is another thing that we all do, which is, and this is how we started class too. On the first class, as we talked about how from childhood we have been reaching outside of ourselves to get the answers from our parents, and then and our teachers as we get older, and then from church or other places where people will tell us what to do, and so we become kind of like people pleasers, like you're saying, Kara. And so the shift then is whenever, in order to begin to untangle from other people's expectations of you, like you're saying, is to account for what they expect, what they said, what they want, and then also, given all the factors that are present, reason out for yourself what actually you think would be best. And that's something that's easy to brush off, is us actually using our own reasoning capacity. And right off the bat like that, we might say, well, no, yeah, I'm using my reasoning, but really though, let's go a little bit deeper even. And what our reasoning that we think would be best in the situation might be completely different from what someone else is saying. what someone else is expecting. But let's talk about the quality of this reasoning. It's not like yes or yes, I'll do the thing, or no, I won't do the thing. Not that type of, that's more like more egoic kind of reaction. But actual reasoning is, let's see, define here, what are all the parts? And the parts is this person wants this, and then there's this dynamic situation due to these people over here, and we're wanting to move. So then what's the goal here? Okay, so we're wanting, essentially everyone's wanting to move forward in a more productive way. Okay, so what do I think would move everyone forward in more of a productive way? And just discern it for yourself. And at very least, discern it for yourself. Maybe even write it down if you want to. And you don't have to necessarily even express it to them. But the point is that you've reasoned for yourself what would be best instead of just taking the expectation of others. And this is such a huge thing that we all probably think, I know I did, that I was reasoning for myself, but now in hindsight, what I was doing is very much just doing the expectation of others. But come to find out, I could actually look at all of the parts in the situation and discern what I thought was the purpose or goal here, and then discern what I thought would get us to that goal better. So maybe that's even where it starts at, is like discerning, when there's expectations, discerning what is actually the goal here, and how do I see would be best to get us to that goal. And that's reasoning for ourselves instead of the really pain it can get into of self-suppression when we're always living up the expectation of others. So discerning what is the goal here, and then how do I get us to that goal? I think that's kind of how we get out of that. Other people's expectations. That's really easy to get in. And it's painful too, because it's suppression of yourself. I hope that maybe was helpful a little bit. Does anybody else have any?
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
How you said it's like the suppression of self, that really sticks out to me because I feel like I resonate with both of what you guys have said, with having high standards and high expectations for myself. And when I have explored where I adopted that behavior, and I go back to my childhood, I think about those early subconscious programs had to have come from childhood. So, what I have kind of gotten from that so far is just that from a very, very early age, like the people around me have always projected their expectations onto me. What kind of daughter I would be, what kind of sister, friend, etc., from like a very young age. And I think that I personally, I won't say we, but I personally wanted to mold myself to be that person they wanted me to be, to fulfill their expectations so that I could feel loved and accepted. And I think that little trait from childhood has had so many symptoms show up as an adult in how I express myself, and the fear to express myself or be my authentic self for fear of rejection from the people around me. So I just wanted to add that.
That was so good. And you're right, this is so similar to what they described too. And I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the and it really, and oh my goodness, it's like you guys are all so precious and of an absolute specific value, a different value to everyone else in the world, but of equalness, and the importance of you to express in that very specific, valued way in order to give to the whole what the whole is needing from you. And so to suppress that specific, unique value that you are by just acquiescing to others' expectations is to limit that value that you are literally here to give to the whole. And so it's a learning. It's hard too to push through that too, because like you said, from childhood we're so, it's like that's what happened at childhood, and it was important for it to happen then, because we needed someone to tell us how to move through the world. And now at a certain point in our adulthood, it's like we need to start moving our intrinsic value out of us and into the world. And that happens by accounting for the expectations of others as their opinions and thoughts, and also accounting for the exact dynamic of the situation, discerning what the goal is, and then for yourself, reasoning out how best to get to that goal. And sometimes you may have to talk with all the other people involved to get them on board with what you see. Or maybe even, there might even be a bit of a compromising, so that way everyone's opinions and expectations are accounted for, moving together that way. Versus what our tendency usually is, which is to just suppress ourselves completely and just move forward with the expectation of others. And this is a hard shift to make though. But you know, it isn't that hard at the same time. But all it really takes is one experience, KT, of someone expecting something from you and you being like, okay, I receive, and maybe even on your own time, okay, I receive that expectation. Now let me reason for myself, given all the dynamic here and what the goal is, what I think would be best to move forward. It just takes one experience of doing that and seeing how your intrinsic value and power actually move the situation forward far greater than possibly what they even expected or wanted. You need one experience of that.
I think it's also important for me to get to a place of just accepting that inevitably doing what I feel is right might let other people down. And that's part of putting myself out there. Not everybody is going to understand whatever I'm expressing, and that can be okay. Because if I limit my expression, I might not even reach the people I'm meant to reach.
So you don't want to let people down, you said. That's the main thing, is you don't want to let people down. And so it's even like, that's even the first barricade to even reasoning for yourself is that thought form of, I don't want to let people down. That's like the first thing in the way. And so I wonder if what people want, even deeper than the surface level expectation that they're sharing with you, is for, and I would need to know more specifics, is for you to be your authentic self. And so they're perceiving, not from the shoes of KT, but from the shoes of their self, what would give KT the greatest experience of her most authentic self. And people do that kind of stuff all the time. Now, once again, I may be totally talking outside of what your experience is, but my point is to go deeper with what their what's behind their expectation. So that way you can be okay with letting them down whenever they see that you're actually your authentic self, which is probably what they really wanted anyways. And once again, I'm really speculating here, but I would need to go deeper with your specific experience to unravel that not wanting to let people down. It can be unraveled for sure.
I think that when you are not being authentically yourself and doing what you want, people can tell, even if you're good at faking it. And so then they start getting vaguely uncomfortable and they're not sure why, maybe. I don't know if they consciously know that you're doing it. I mean, this is just my general opinion, I guess, but this is what I've started to think. Like, I'm super codependent and a people pleaser and da 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 da. And when I really get into that, it puts people off and they run away from me. They won't talk to me.
Yeah. And maybe some of
like, even if they don't consciously know they're doing it, they get the vibe and they go away.
And maybe some of that stuff is important to happen at first until you weed out those type of people that were in it for weird side reasons instead of for integrity, instead of everyone's best interest. And then when you get people in your life now who's more interested in everyone's best interest versus just the side interest of one individual, then now everyone can freely express their most authentic self. So maybe it's something like that, a collapsing of the old and a rebuilding of the new. Because I get what you're saying. Or maybe even what will happen as you do that more and do that more, then they change around you, right? And so as you express your most authentic self more, reason for yourself more, then those people around you will have to get used to the new you. And they won't like it at first because people don't like change in general. But for you to be able to live the rest of your life in a decent way, we need to be able to express authentically and reason for ourselves. And that will ruffle other feathers. And that also is the process of evolution, which is absolutely necessary. And so maybe for you as well, KT, that what you're coming up against is a more clear understanding of the purpose of existence, which is literally us aiding each other to evolution. And so it takes ruffled feathers sometimes. It takes letting people down sometimes. And you know what that gives, though? Not a bad thing. It gives them an experience to process, oh, what was I doing before that actually wasn't in alignment clearly? Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this let down state. There's something that my intentions were off to where I didn't have KT's best intentions in mind. And so you give them an opportunity to align themselves more, which is literally the purpose of life. And so to think that you would want to prevent that from happening is to not understand clearly in your own mind, to not see clearly in your mind what the purpose of life is. Or maybe for you to even clearly discern for yourself instead of taking my words of what the purpose of life is. Maybe that's the first step, is for you to discern clearly for yourself what you think the purpose of life is. And then it won't be about letting people down anymore. It'll be about giving them the opportunity to align themselves more with, align themselves more. Good stuff, guys. Any other thoughts about last week's lesson or the journaling prompt or the exercise or anything before we move on? And if you guys want to talk more specific details out with me sometime, please feel free to set an appointment with me. I would love to make this more of a reality in anyone's life with the specific details of their life. So that way it doesn't stay like a concept, but it's actually their life, and there's your life, and there's action steps to move forward. Okay, guys. Let's go on to the next lesson where we deepen this idea that we're already talking about. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let's see. Lesson 3. Gain loss within the awareness of the dance is what this one is called. Gain loss within the awareness of the dance. If a couple people could let me know whenever they see the screen that it's working, that would be great.
I see it.
Thumbs up. I see it. Great. Thank you, guys. All right. Here we go, guys. Awakening. Lesson 3. Gain loss within the awareness of the dance. As in each... Stan, can you mute yourself? You have a lot of background noise. As in each of these lessons, we use the experience in our lives to see humanity's beliefs as they come up within our own system, evolving them to a greater context. So I'm going to pause even right there. Immediately, we're talking about something interesting here. It's like, it's suggestive. It's saying that the beliefs that come up within our own experience isn't ours personally, but humanity's. And we've come to adopt these beliefs and ways of thinking due to the simpleness of being a part of humanity. So once again, we're really taking the causal agent of the individual out of this. And we've done this in past lessons in different ways. And in this way, we're doing it in terms of seeing that the experience and beliefs that we have are ours as a result of being a part of humanity. And if humanity was drastically different, then our thoughts and beliefs would be drastically different because we are a part of that one system. So our thoughts and beliefs that come up within an experience isn't ours personally per se, but it is a part of being in the system that we are in. These beliefs we have adopted as part of assimilating into a human existence, kind of like I was just saying. That's the reason why we have these beliefs, because we are in a human existence. Our opportunity to evolve and leave behind a new earth, to produce less and less pain and more freedom for ourselves and those around us and future generations. So each experience in our lives is a chance to take a closer look at how humanity has come to interpret the colors, shapes, movements, characters, and energies that dance before us in our human existence. So it's saying that we've come into one of these human bodies not only to take on and experience essentially humanity's beliefs and thoughts, but also to help evolve humanity's beliefs and thoughts in order to create a better existence for those around us and future generations, future people who come into one of these bodies and as a human existence. In the past lessons, we have reasoned to a greater context with control right, wrong, and cause. In this lesson, we will continue to reason with our experiences in life, this time to see through the belief in gain-loss that otherwise keeps us limited in our experience as a human. Over eons of having seen the dance of life before us, we have become enamored and entrapped by our interpretation of this divine dance, meaning life as it plays out before us. Our thoughts, our feelings, other people, situations, just everything that life is. We've become enamored by it, particularly by our interpretation of these things. We have come to interpret the energies dancing in a things are better when kind of way. This has created the belief in gain-loss. Things will be better when. And so because of things are better when, there is the experience of loss when that thing that we think will be better isn't here. And there's the experience of gain when that thing that we think makes things better is here. So we interpret life in this gain-loss kind of way, making our well-being subject to the motion of this dance. What is around us or not around us, present or absent, here or not here, have or I don't have, feeling or I'm not feeling, thinking or I'm not thinking, which are all energies constantly moving. You see how all those are have or don't have, gain or loss. This belief in gain-loss as the world dances before us ties us to the world. We become dependent on parts of it. We experience dysfunction instead of freedom. We become of the world, and as such, lose our real self, true nature, which is our only tool for awakening and evolving humanity. This is the purpose of these lessons. Reasoning to the greater context needed to evolve humanity's beliefs. And so we're really looking at our beliefs in a different way, guys. I'm sure you've all noticed this, because that's the purpose of these lessons. To evolve through evolving our own beliefs that have been passed down to us as a result of being part of the human existence. We also, through that process, evolve humanity's beliefs. And thus, I'll continue reading, consciously connect to our real self, the self who was before joining humanity in existence. So you could call that whatever you want to call that. Soul, some people might say. Awareness, some people might say. Whatever word works for you. I don't want to get stuck on specific definitions, but whatever deeper part of yourself that you believe. This is the self, we'll call it, as pure awareness, that again is the only counterforce that can evolve the eons of momentum behind humanity's current beliefs. So connecting with this more deeper, more real essence is the counterforce that creates more clarity within our human experience. And unraveling these beliefs about gain-loss, for instance, is a way that brings us deeper into that deeper sense of who we are as awareness or soul or whatever you want to call it. To further clarify our reasoning, let's take a closer look at this enamoring dance of life and just call it motion. And so it's like everything in existence, everything perceivable, we're calling now, instead of the dance of life, we're calling it motion. Even if we, so here's a fun example. Even if we retreated to an island and climbed up a tree to live, there would still be, or would there still be motion? Is there any way to stop motion? Of course not. there are still the seasons that move, the wind that blows, the tides that rise and recede. No matter where you run, there will be motion. This is true inwardly as well. Our emotions, thoughts, images, and inward experiences of any kind are in motion, like the wind. But yet we have tied a part of ourselves to them. Humanity believes things will be better when the motion of what dances before us is just right, which cannot stop moving and therefore cannot be right. It cannot be permanently right. Yet, we play this game with ourselves constantly, experiencing the uncontrollable dance as failure, success, better, worse, gain, loss, even though it is always in motion and cannot be stopped. So it's like life is always in motion and moving, and sometimes we hit our goal and get what we wanted. But to interpret it as that most limited interpretation, to interpret this dance of life when it gets in this particular way we wanted, as failure, success, as gain, loss, then is to set ourselves up for that roller coaster of experience, to set ourselves up for that pain. So we can still have direction in our lives, but to exclusively call this dance of life when it hits the direction point or a goal that we wanted, to interpret that dance of life as gain, loss, or failure, success, is to be setting us up for that pain and confusion. Yet we play this game with ourselves. I read that part already. Last paragraph here. This has come back to our exaggerated belief in controlling our lives, which again is an old, incomplete, that's all it is an old, incomplete, limited context that's been passed down from humanity for them to attempt to interpret and move in the dance of motion called life. Let's get real. If the world cannot stop, and yet we believe things will get better when we have set ourselves up for a pattern that never ends. So we've discerned very clearly that the world cannot stop. The dance of life is always going to be moving. And granted, we have goals and direction. But to believe that things will be better when, and yet the world cannot stop moving, is to set ourselves up for a pattern that never ends. A pattern of always lacking, of always longing, of always discontentment. So yes, we can have goals and direction, but to interpret every moment in terms of failure, success, or gain or loss in a spinning world that cannot stop would be to only have one brief interval of success within the whole spectrum of failure. That's a pattern that never ends. And so our success is almost non-existent. Our gain is almost non-existent. And this is entrapment. We're starting to learn and see that we are a piece within the organism, that we direct our flow of energy and influence the energies around us. It isn't this machine that we've come to think of ourselves and life as, that is, you either have it or you don't. It is either right, you got it, or wrong, you didn't. It's either a gain or it's a loss. It's either a failure or it's a success. This idea of this black and white machine kind of world that we live in is just the most limited surface interpretation possible. And it was passed down to us from years and decades and centuries ago of people working out, trying to understand their experience in life, trying to understand the dance before them. And so we're here to awaken from these most surface level interpretations, to see it in a much bigger spectrum, that each moment isn't about one of those most simple things of failure, success, gain, loss, right or wrong. It isn't about that. Each moment isn't about that. That's just humanity's most surface level interpretation of each moment, that humanity so far has been completely entrapped by and enthralled by. But we're learning that that most surface level interpretation way of doing things is just that. It's just the most surface level way of doing things. There's actually something much larger at hand. And each moment isn't about failure, success. It isn't about gain or loss. How could it possibly... that's such a limited way to view things when our spectrum of success or gain is only this big compared to each moment when we don't have that one thing we wanted. And so that's entrapment. And so you can even kind of see how this makes you feel. And that's the purpose of a lot of these lessons, is just to read it and then to see what that consciousness is like. Because these lessons point to a particular type of consciousness. It produces a type of feeling within you. It produces a type of present moment clarity within you that actually gives you the capacity to perceive in ways that the normal surface level mode of interpreting things that has been passed down to us just doesn't give us the capacity to perceive. And so even just reading this lesson right before perhaps you start your day or right before you do anything is going to put you in a particular type of consciousness, a particular type of state, which really is the space of clarity and the state or space of freedom. And then you can do and work with that space in whatever way you want to. You can do anything you want to with it. The point is you have contact with that space to use in whatever way you see fit. That space of not the surface level interpretation. That space of expansive freedom. And now you can move in your life in whatever way you want to. You're no longer entrapped. Free. Any thoughts or anything about that lesson, guys?
I like it. I mean, that's where I know that when I do my subconscious patterns that I am not happy.
Mm-hmm.
They never worked before. Why would they start working now? Like, they probably worked once when I was 4 or something.
Right.
But yeah, at this point, I'm an adult and that isn't working for me. I mean, I already realized that at least a decade ago that as soon as I graduate high school, as soon as I graduate college, as soon as I get married, as soon as I have a kid, as soon as I get a divorce, I'll be happy. So, yeah, you got to figure out how to be happy right now.
Right.
Because
I think so many people are. It's just the next best thing. Everybody's looking for the next best thing. The thing that's going to make us feel better. Thing that's going to make us feel happy. When all it really is just surface stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true happiness.
Well said. The next best thing. Yeah, totally. It's like, where's the next payoff? What will possibly produce the next payoff? Even if it's only...
iPhone 12.
What'd you say?
iPhone 12.
Right, iPhone
I don't
15.
what number iPhones are on.
Right. iPhone 1,000,000. I want it now.
I've mentioned this to you before, Brian, but there's that wonderful book called The Happiness Advantage. And it talks about how we're programmed from youth that once we accomplish a goal, we'll be happy. You know, once I graduate high school, once I graduate college, just as Kara said. And that the formula is broken and backwards and basically made so that we are a cog in the machine.
Right.
We don't think for ourselves, and it traps us. And instead, what actually, when they did all the research, found whenever people became happy, then success followed. So instead of having success and then being happy, it's actually backwards. You're happy and then you have success.
Totally. That's a good example of this. Totally. It's like, yeah, go ahead.
I think society even, our society functions on this. That's how they market everything.
Totally.
Life will be happy when you get the 6-pack. Life will be happy when you get a boat. And they don't teach this at all. There's zero lessons about being present or how your mind works. And along the same lines of that book, I took a happiness course. And a major part of that was what people think will make them happy doesn't really make them as happy as they think it will, like accomplishing a thing or getting a thing. And what really does make people happy is giving or connecting with people or even interacting with strangers. Like most people think talking to strangers will not result in happiness, but even introverted people will have happiness from like a random interaction with somebody on a train or something. They did a bunch of studies and found this out. So.
That's cool.
The reason people look outside of themselves for happiness and gratification is because that's what our entire culture teaches, that happiness is in the material. And until people come to the realization, by whatever pathway, that real happiness originates within, then they're going to be like a little dog chasing its tail on the material level. And I think what Corbin said is absolutely right on. Once you find happiness within, then that spreads to the material level.
Right.
You find happiness outside of yourself.
Totally.
Because the happiness within you radiates outwards. And like attracts like, other people pick up on your happiness vibes and they want it too. And most of them don't have it and they don't know how to find it.
Yep. I think that it has to do with being enamored by and stuck on those most surface level interpretations, and that's a very unhappy, uncontented, unpeaceful, unbalanced life. And so, yeah, it is easy not to know how to do it. Like Kara said, they just don't. This isn't really taught in our society specifically. So, yeah. It's unravel. I think I see it very clearly these days as unraveling humanity's most surface level interpretations in order to really, kind of like you guys have been saying, just be present. And in that, there's a whole different type of consciousness in being present that is completely polar and opposite from the surface level interpretations, consciousness and state that produces. And in this more present state or consciousness, we feel free, and so therefore our interactions with people are more free, so our interactions are going to go better, so we're probably going to get more of what we wanted anyways to begin with, just by letting go of or seeing the limitedness of those most surface level interpretations. So this week, guys, looks like we're 7:31, about an hour and a half, about done with our class time, so I'm going to wrap up this end part here. This week, as usual, read the lesson as often as possible. It really does produce a particular kind of state or a particular kind of consciousness, and maybe even have an experience with how one's reasoning capacity even improves in this consciousness, in this state. And see what way your decision making or the direction you want to go next in your life actually works better, feels better, is more free, more effective. Have an experience with that. And then this awakening orientation practice is it is pretty much the same. We'll go more into that next week. I think next week we're going to change it a little bit. But as far as this week, keep doing that same orientation practice. The way I was thinking that it was going to be different this week, I'll go ahead and describe it to you real quick because it's super simple. Maybe we won't do it different next week. We'll do it different this week. So this week, the awareness practice is instead of so much inward emphasis, because like Corbin was saying and other people agreed, it's like sometimes when our thoughts and our emotions are kind of going doing their thing, then it can be hard to have an inward experience in these specific ways. So this practice is a little bit more outward, and so it's just become aware of not only your body this week. So while you're doing the awareness orientation exercise, you're orienting to different things. Instead of your thoughts and emotions, you're orienting to other objects in the room, including your body, equally and at the same time. So it's basically,
Say that again.
I'll describe it a little bit more in different words. You guys will have those words there. In my different words, I would say there's not so much focus or emphasis on thought or emotion. So you can kind of let go of that for now. But what the emphasis is on is your body as an object in the room, and also pick one or all other objects in the room. And maybe even practice first with one, though, like my body here and that chair over there, or my body here and the floor in that chair, or my body here, the floor, that chair, and the desk. The point is to expand your awareness out, meaning be aware of more than one thing at a time and equally. So you'll have to just experiment with that and discover for yourself what that might mean.
I feel like,
Yeah?
especially with my emotions, I don't necessarily know what my emotions are unless they're exaggerated. Like I get really mad, then I'm like, oh, why am I so mad? But like if I'm just sitting and you ask me like what my emotions are right now, I can't tell you what my emotions are. I don't know.
Right.
I have to stop thinking and observe my body to know my emotions. I have to journal my dreams. to know how I feel about things, because like, yeah, it's hard for me to, maybe with practice I'll get better at it, but like as it stands right now, if you ask me at any point like what's your emotion, I'm like,
Right.
bored.
Right. Yeah, I hear that a lot from people. That's definitely yeah, I get it. So perhaps by just doing the awareness exercise, we all will become more aware of the differences in emotions, because that sounds essentially like what you're talking about is not enough experience with attention on emotions to even discern the difference. And so this exercise isn't really about emotions as like the last one kind of was. This one here, the more focus is just in general on your body and just in general on the other objects in the room equally. And just to have an experience with with your awareness being aware of more than just yourself. So this week, just have an experience with that, of placing your attention on your body as well as other things in the room at the same time and equally. Just have an experience with it. I know it might seem weird, but I think that you might fall into something that is important. All these exercises are pointing to something important. It's up to you to have the experience. And it's your own experience, so whatever experience you have is perfect. And then lastly, we have a new journal prompt, as always, an opportunity to integrate this new thought form of this lesson. And the journal prompt is, describe a recent event in time where you experienced pain and or confusion. Okay, that's easy. Next, expand out to see in what way that part of life actually controls itself more than you controlling it. Describe what you see in your journal. So this is an opportunity for you to expand out past the painful or confusing experience to see how actually I didn't have control over it. There are so many other factors involved in their lives that really created the experience. And so it's an opportunity for you to expand out and see that. And so simply describe what you see in your journal. That's the real part of the exercise. That's the real journal prompt, is describe what you see in that expanded out experience. So once again, there's no right or wrong answer for any of these. It's just an opportunity for you to integrate, to look deeper into yourself and possibly integrate something new. All right, guys, any thoughts or questions? Any thoughts or questions at all? Okay, guys, we did it. I will see you all. Oh, yeah, this is our last class for 2 weeks. I think everyone got that group text message. We're going to take off for the next 2 holidays. I didn't want anyone to come into any kind of like conflict of whether I should choose to go to class or choose to go to family things. So since the next 2 classes evolve on the eve of 2 major holidays, Christmas and New Year's, I thought we'd just take off the next 2 weeks. So we'll come back together January 7th, which is, of course, a Thursday, the first Thursday in January at our usual time of 6 p.m. And in the meantime, let's stay active on our group text, and also I'll probably reach out a couple times throughout the next couple of weeks and see how things are going with this new lesson and the journal prompt and experiences and things like that. So I love you guys very much, and I'll see you January 7th, but I'll definitely talk to you before then. All right, bye guys. Love you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.